Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the GAA Museum Book Club with me, Julianne. I'm delighted to have a bit of a different book club choice this month. For Christmas, we decided we'd focus on children's books and some really good gift ideas. So we're focusing on a book that actually came out last year, but is still really popular here. I have it here. It's a giant book. The Great Irish Book of Gaelic Games by the very, very busy and talented Evanne who has managed to fit us in to chat to us. I know she's been super busy all year. So we're going to have a quick chat with Evanne about the book and about herself and I suppose her own experience in the GAA world and beyond. So Evanne, thank you so much for joining us.
Julianne, it's absolutely my pleasure. I'm honoured to be discussed by the GAA Museum Book Club, so thank you.
Well, we've loads of younger members who join us for kind of kids' book choices. So I thought, what better one than the Great Irish Book of Gaelic Games? I was looking through it again with my boy who's 9 last night, and I was asking him, what questions do you think I should ask? What do you like about the book? And he said he likes that he can jump in and out of it, that there's lots of facts which kids like, and he likes that you don't have to read it in any particular order. And I was thinking about that and just thinking, where did you even begin? Like how, because there's so much with the GA. You have obviously the sports, the football, hurling, camogie, ladies football, then you have rounders, puck fada,
Yeah.
handball. Then you've gone through things like the stadiums, media, big match days, everything. How did it come together, or how did you start to plan what you wanted to do?
That's such a great question, Julianne, because it was probably the hardest part of the process
Hmm.
was the table of contents.
Yeah.
So when the publishers rang me, they had this idea that they bring out one of these books every year, the Great Irish Book of
Yes.
something, and they wanted me to write this particular version, and I was really excited to do that. But I only wanted to do it if it was extremely inclusive.
Uh-huh.
So like the very beginning, I spent probably 6 weeks just figuring out the table of contents page, which, as you can see, is very long. There are five different parts to the book, and every part has has like subsections.
Yeah.
But I did wanted to include, like initially they wanted to call it the Great Irish Book of the GAA, and straight away I said no because
No,
that
doesn't
won't,
include
at the moment
camogie
anyway,
and
that doesn't
yeah.
include camogie and ladies football. So yeah, like I suppose breaking it down, I figured the history was very important, and again I wanted to make it easy to consume for young people because
Yes.
it's a heavy history, it's a long
Yes, it
history,
is.
it's
And
a
there's a
very
lot in
proud
it.
history, but there's loads in it, yeah. So we kind of looked at the history of Gaelic games, and then I broke it down into sections, and I thought the small ball was a good way of breaking it down because I
Yeah.
was able to include puck fada,
And rounders and
and rounders and
yeah.
handball with hurling and
Yeah.
camogie. And then we had the big ball section, which obviously was ladies football and Gaelic football, but also international rules. And I
Yes.
put there's a bit of Aussie rules in there as well,
Yeah.
because there are like increasingly, huge numbers of Irish people playing Aussie rules. So that was the big ball section. And then, like you say, there's so much around the match day. There's so much around the experience of
Huge.
going to a Gaelic games
And I
match
loved the
or a
bit about
match
the
day.
the rituals that you did. Like I
Yeah.
have actually I know this, but I've actually never seen that written down before. Like this happens, there's the parade and the
Yeah.
music and all of that. And for children, that's lovely to see.
It is because it's a huge privilege to attend Crow Park, and not
Hmm.
everybody can get a ticket, and not everybody can actually be there. And I've always found it a huge privilege to be there anytime that I'm working there. So I wanted to try and give an idea or open a window into what it's like on the big match day. And I had great chats with Peter McKenna around what happens from his side from the very beginning of the day.
Wow. Yeah.
And he helped me with that. And then obviously I'd have the insight from working in the media around, what time and how far in advance the trucks go in and
Yeah.
set up for the day. And obviously I've been in the press box, so I know the way things work. But even stuff the kids find really interesting. I was at the Festival in Kilkenny a few weeks ago, and they were fascinated by the amount of cafes in Crow Park and, the
Yeah.
stuff around all the little detail that you don't
Yeah.
really think about.
It did
Or
remind me of a
even,
tour a little bit that because they love things like
yes.
we tell them on a tour there's 2,000 doors in the stadium, don't
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
lost,
They
things
love
like
that
that.
though. They
Love
love
it.
those statistics.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been very like obviously I've gone through I was very conscious, like when my kids were much younger, like I have a 12-year-old boy now, but when he was 3 or 4, he wanted to know all the county colours.
Yes, and that's a lovely
So
page in
there's a
the
whole
book.
page around, the
Hmm.
county colours and how popular blue and gold are.
Yes,
And then obviously we have the nicknames for the different counties, which again, children love,
love that.
listing those kinds
Yeah.
of things
And I
off.
didn't know myself that Carlo were known as the
I
Scallions.
know, and it's so funny because I spoke to somebody from Carlo about this, and they said, well, it doesn't count unless you actually say the Scalionators. You have to
All
say it with a
right.
Carlo
I'm
accent, or otherwise
sorry.
it doesn't count.
True.
But yeah, I didn't know lots of things I didn't know.
Yeah.
Little facts like that. And like your son said, it is the kind of book you can leave on the coffee table and you can open it.
Yeah.
And adults have come up to me and said, I bought it for my child, but actually I'm picking it up and putting it back down again and picking it up a few months later and learning something.
No,
So
absolutely. And it's even a good resource. I think the language is very good because, as you say, the history in particular obviously is dear to our heart here, but it can be quite hard to explain. And we would have a very different tour here if if we've a senior citizens group than
yeah,
if we've a primary school group. And I was even just saying this morning, this is a lovely way for tour guides to kind of explain the history, Michael Cusack, the
yeah,
growth of the GAA, all of that. The language is really simple in it, and also the way it's broken up. It's a very visual book, which so
yeah.
if you're not a big reader, it's accessible, I
Yeah.
think.
And actually, Donna O'Malley did a fantastic job on the
Oh, it's
illustrations.
amazing.
Like it's
Yeah.
beautifully illustrated. And like when I was writing this book, I had complete editorial control over the book, which was amazing for me to have. Like it was challenging to figure out what I wanted to put in it. But at the same time, once I had decided what the content would be, I wrote everything. But it
Right.
didn't come alive until Donna started drawing.
I was wondering that,
Um,
like, were you back and forth a lot during the writing, or was it written
I
and
did
then
most of
sent
the
to him?
writing. I did most of the writing first.
Right.
And then he came to the process a bit later because he needed to read it and he needed to have that material to work with.
Yeah.
And then there was very little toing and froing between Donna and I. It would go through the book, it would go through the publishers, and they
Yes.
would come back. And there were a couple of instances where I would see some of the drawings and think, okay, that's not quite right, like goalposts that might have been just high enough
Slightly.
or that.
Yeah.
So I was in a position to keep an eye, just in case, there was something that wasn't factually correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a really interesting process. And I know it's a year old now. I'm still so proud of it.
Oh, you must be.
Because
It's huge.
I
It's
still have
lovely.
people, yeah, I still have people kind of, commenting on it or coming up to me and saying that it was a lovely book to come into the house. It's one of those books
Yeah,
that's
you'd
not
keep
gonna,
it.
you'd keep it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to the publishers, I suppose 2 years ago now when they first rang me and I was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And I wanted to call it the Great Irish Book of Gaelic Games as opposed to the GAA, but I
Yeah.
said it's going to be out of date soon because, once we get to integration, which I hope we do, and I hope it's
Hmm.
smooth sailing and it happens very soon, this will be historical, the stuff around the different associations and how they're not all joined up together. But in a way,
Yeah.
it then makes it a historical kind of reference as
It's a
well.
moment in time. And
Yeah,
also you could update it. There's maybe scope to
it could be
update it.
updated, yeah. It
Yeah.
could be updated, yeah. And one of the things, like there is a section there on my dear colleague, late colleague, Micheál Murhertig, who
Yes.
passed away since the book came out. And I'm so glad that there is a dedication to him there as well. The end of each section has a kind of a 2-page spread on one of the influential people in
Yeah.
relation to it. And Michael Cusack would be the one around the history. But in terms of the match day experience and the media, there's a 2-page spread on Micheál Murhertig. And I'm so glad that I chose to have him as the
Yeah.
centre point of that. Because yeah, it was a nice nod to a really good friend of mine and an amazing broadcaster.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. He was a
he's no
great
longer
friend of
with
the
us.
museum too. He'd often come in and
Yeah,
people would be delighted in the cafe to see him and
yeah,
they'd be over
yeah, yeah,
chatting him.
yeah.
Yeah, lovely. And it reminded me actually the end of the book then you kind of talk about the GAA overseas. And again, it kind of reminded me of the tour here because we finish at the club wall outside, which has all the crests from all over the world. And people
Yeah.
are amazed to see that. So I thought that was a lovely way to end the book as well, because it's nearly kind of looking to the future and I suppose the continued growth of the games.
Yeah, like this is actually my favorite page. And obviously, like I said, Donna has done an amazing
Yes.
job. This page here about the GA around the world and Gaelic games around the world, I just think he captures
Yeah.
you know, the spirit of the games and how the games traveled with the people and then created a whole community, particularly in New York, and the story around that. And then there's little, fun pieces of information. And actually, it was really interesting when I was doing the Bookville Festival recently. It was Halloween, and
Uh,
there's a little fact in there about Hurloween, a festival in Wisconsin where they all rock up in their Halloween gear and they play hurling matches and they call
wow.
it Hurloween. It's brilliant. But there's loads of little things like that. There's no way that you'd have heard about or know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite pages actually, because it makes us think kind of just how strong the like Gaelic games are around the world and how many clubs are outside of Ireland. And you mentioned the club wall, like there were, thousands of clubs,
Yeah.
thousands of miles away as well, which is
Yeah.
mad to think.
Amazing. Yeah. And
People are always shocked when I tell them there are 23 clubs in New York alone, which
yeah,
is mad.
we'd have some groups that have no knowledge of the GAA that come from maybe North America, and they can't believe,
Yeah,
where that there is clubs, and
yeah.
sometimes they do go back and maybe,
Seek them out.
seek them
Yeah,
out. Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
You said that they approached it to write the book. Did you feel a big responsibility? Because I suppose it's the definitive GAA book for Gaelic Games book for children now.
Yeah, like I did actually. And, that's why I had to go away and really think about the table of contents,
Hmm.
because my biggest thing was inclusion. Because I mean, the spirit of of Gaelic Games is one of inclusion, really, when you
Yes.
think about it. There's a place for absolutely everybody. And I had just started playing Mothers and Others Gaelic football as well, ladies football. So um I wanted to make sure that women were well represented. And there were a
Yes.
couple of times where I went back and I said, there's not enough women on that page. Like
Yeah.
when we're depicting the games, we need to make sure that we have enough women involved in the skills of the game. And,
Absolutely.
so there was a little bit of that. So yeah, I did feel like it was a bit of a responsibility. And I felt quite anxious in the early stages, in
Yeah, I
the
can
very early
imagine.
stages, just
Yeah.
around the table of contents. And just to give you, like, even just visually, like this is the table of contents here. And like, there's so much in that.
Huge.
And that page alone, like that took me about 6 weeks
I
just to
can
figure out,
imagine. Yeah.
what was going to be in the book, in terms of content.
But that
Um,
was a good basis then once you really had
oh,
that
like
perfected.
it was like
Yeah.
having a spider diagram for the
Yeah,
book.
it's like a project. Yeah.
Yeah, and once I
Yeah.
had that done, I really enjoyed. I used to go to the library actually, and just I put on my headphones. I'd have brown noise so that I wouldn't get distracted, and I would
Yeah.
just sit there with my laptop for 3 4 hours and write and research. And I loved that process,
Lovely.
because once I had my headline chapters, I knew what to do, and I had like a roadmap for the book,
Yeah.
which I found really helpful. Anyway, it's my first book as well, so I didn't really have a huge amount of experience to go on, but I kind of
Yeah.
found my way through it as well.
And were you excited then when the final product was in your
I was
hand?
so excited. Yeah, I was. And like I didn't see the cover of the book until very late, like just before it hit the shelves. So that was really
Uh-huh.
exciting as well.
Wow.
I saw snippets and I actually saw some of the drawings like in black and white, like in pencil drawings and stuff,
Yes.
sketches. But like Donna did an amazing job just bringing all the content to life.
Oh, his illustrations are
They're
fabulous, and
fabulous. Yeah,
yeah, and they're kind of timeless as well. And it
they
really
are.
stands out. The size of the book, I think, is lovely. Kids will love it because you can put it on
Yeah,
the floor or the table. Or
yeah.
yeah, it's really good. I had a few other questions, just I suppose, about yourself. So for maybe for our younger people who are watching, your job, I suppose, is really interesting. And we've seen you loads over the summer with the Olympics. I suppose being one of, I can imagine very exciting to work on, but also very busy. Can you tell us a little bit about, I suppose, your background and how you came to be in the position to be asked to
Mm.
write the book?
That's a great question. I still don't know why they asked me to write the book. I was delighted, like, to even be asked. But yeah, well, I mean, I suppose I have been working in RTE now for 20 years. So I'm kind of part of the furniture. I would have done a degree in communication studies and a master's then or a higher diploma in communications and journalism in Galway through Irish, and initially would
Okay.
have worked in sports programming for TG Cahir. But the 2004 Olympics were kind of the beginning of my journey in RTE as a freelancer. Um, and yeah, I kind of just worked away in there behind the scenes, as a
Yeah.
researcher, and the Sunday game, like as well. I was working on that from day one, really, before the Olympics even. And I became aligned with Gaelic Games coverage because I was working on the Sunday game, and then because I started my reporting career, I suppose, on the Sunday game.
Right.
So that's probably where it started. And then over the years, I have presented the Sunday game at times, or League
Yeah.
Sunday, or whatever else, Club GAA. There's been lots of camogie, there's been lots of Gaelic Games programming, which I've worked on. So
Yeah.
I probably just became a little bit more aligned with it. My sporting background, I'm from Kilkenny, so I did play camogie.
You kind of have to.
But I wasn't any good. Like I was much better. I played basketball a lot more than that.
Right.
And I danced as well, and I played music, and I was kind of involved in everything. I was one of those people that kind of I threw my hat in every ring, and
Yes.
so I used to see what stuck. But so yeah, I've been there for 20 years now. I'm back and did another master's in 2014, 15. And I'm just kind of that kind of person where I'll always look for another challenge. And the book, when they rang me, I was like, yes, here's my next challenge. I really wanted to
Wow.
do it. And like the other interesting thing about it is you would never have the confidence. Well, I would never have had the confidence to write the book unless
To
someone asked me.
approach them. Yeah.
Somebody told me
Yeah.
that I had the ability to do it. And I was like, okay, well, if you're telling me I can do this, I can do this. So I did it.
Yeah.
And now I want to write another book
I was just,
because
that
I
was going
did
to be
it.
one of my next questions.
Yeah.
Would you attempt it again, or would
I've
you?
always wanted to write a book, or I've always wanted to write, and I've always loved writing.
Yeah.
My dad is a retired English teacher, a retired
Ah,
principal, and
okay.
I would have grown up kind of, reading and writing and being encouraged to read and write.
Yeah.
So I do have an idea for another book. It's completely different, but
Right.
it's still something I wouldn't have had the confidence to go and do,
Without
even
this
though I
one.
had this idea before this book. I wouldn't
Ah.
have had the confidence to go and sit down and write it unless I had gone through this process. So it's been brilliant for me, just from a confidence point of view, to realize, okay, I can do that.
Oh, it's amazing, and but for what a first book as well, and it's
Yeah,
timeless. I know it came out last year, but we still sell it here in the shop, and it's one that you'll always have. It's not a one
yeah,
hit wonder and gone. I think it'll be on the shelves for a long time, especially because it's part of that series as well. They're pretty
yeah, that's
iconic now.
true.
People know them. And have you? I suppose when it came out first, you were probably meeting some kids and going to schools and things like that. Have you got any mad questions from children or what? Any feedback?
Um, the feedback, I mean, generally speaking, when I was going out to schools and things, the feedback, the book wasn't really out and about yet.
Hmm.
The kids have great questions though,
Yeah, I can imagine.
They always ask me, did I learn anything that I didn't already know? Which is a really good question when you think about
Yeah.
it. And one of the things that always stands out to me is the camogie, the extra goalpost in the camogie.
Yes, I wrote that down. Actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Which obviously, like, it's one of the things that I always tell the kids, like, you might think you know everything, but you don't. But the
Yeah.
goalpost, I'll try and find your small ball here. It's here somewhere. Um, so this page here, this is the page dedicated to camogie.
Camogie, yeah.
There is a goalpost down here with an extra crossbar. So you'll see the second crossbar up here.
Yeah.
So basically, up until 1974, I think it was, there was a second crossbar, and if the ball went over that crossbar, 79 it was abolished, you didn't score. So if it was too high, you were punished. And I just found it fascinating that they were punishing women for being too
For
strong.
strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mad. I
So
had never heard
I
that.
actually
Yeah.
asked Angela Downey
You're
about
right.
it because I hadn't heard about this rule, and she said, yeah, it was the bane of our lives because they were strong hurlers and they hated that rule. Because
Mad.
they had to really try and get it between the two posts. So I just couldn't believe that was a rule. And I thank
And did
God
they
it's
have to
gone.
go out and physically add this post on a GA
They
picture?
must have had to,
It's
yeah. I
mad,
mean,
isn't
I
it?
just can't believe it.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
mad. Yeah.
yeah, it is mad.
And another thing I didn't realize was that Down were the first ones to wear black shorts. I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
It's a really good little interesting facts as you go through
yeah,
the book. And I loved the fun facts or the did you knows as you go through.
yeah.
Did you have them in mind as you were writing the book?
Yeah, because I wanted it to be, like I said earlier, like about kids being able to consume the content. And like a lot of kids are great readers, but some of them are reluctant readers and the visual stuff really helps them,
Yeah,
but so do the little tidbits of information.
yeah,
Because like that, they can pick it up, read like a sentence and put it back down and they've learned something.
yes,
So I was really conscious of that. And the publishers are really good around how to organize that and where to put it on the different pages.
yeah. Yeah,
So
they're
yeah.
lovely. And did you the headlines then, like the headings in the like Camogie is class, the one you just showed
Yeah.
us there? Were they your idea or
Yeah.
did they? They're brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that was my idea. Yeah. I loved
yeah,
that because I wanted to make it like that again. I wanted to kind of make it like, the kids would kind of read it and remember it, or that it might stand out. And I'm always trying
yeah.
to push that message around camogie as well, because sometimes like I'm coaching under nines now, my
Wow.
daughter's team, and you know, sometimes you'll get a reluctance around camogie. Not so much now, but when they were younger, and it's to do with like the helmet and all the
Yeah,
gear,
there's
and
a
then
lot
it's harder.
going
It's a
on.
much harder
Yeah,
sport to pick up, and you really have
yeah,
to work at it. But
yeah,
once you catch the bug, it is class. So,
yeah.
that's why I wanted to, yeah,
Yeah,
to give that
I
message
really
across.
I really loved that. And then you've picked out giants of the game. Obviously, there is a piece on Henry, but then there's kind of a page in each of the hurling and football on the giant players of the game. How did you just whittle them down or decide
Oh, that
how
was
to
so
do them?
hard.
I can
That was
imagine.
so, and I did actually lie awake about those pages. And the same with Brilliant Banish Story.
Yes.
And the same even with the dynasty, like even with the pages around the history of football, like it was really hard to condense it. And
Yeah.
like that particular journey about Gaelic football through the decades, that was originally I wanted it to be 4 pages
Right.
because I wanted to give a whole lot more detail. And it was about Gaelic
Yeah.
football from the 1950s onwards. And the publisher was like, hold on a second now. The readers of this book are, for the most part, born post 2010.
Yeah.
You need to just rein
Yeah.
this
You have
in a
to
little
keep
bit,
that in
Evan.
mind.
So I had to streamline it a bit more. But again, like it was great to have that direction because I would have lost myself in detail and it was too much detail.
Yeah.
But it was very, very hard. And I was trying to get a geographical spread on, the giants of the game and the managers and stuff. But also I wanted to like have them in there on merit. And it was really hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And the gender split as well. I wanted to have a
Yes.
gender split.
Of course. And I
Um,
think you made good choices. So it's
oh,
very
I
hard.
hope
How
so.
do
It's so
you do
hard.
it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah, which it's the same here in the museum, it's what do you display. So a lot of it actually reminded me of kind of things we have in the museum or stories,
Yeah.
but for sure the language, and I think writing simply is so difficult.
It is. It's
It's
so
more
hard to write for
difficult.
people.
Yeah.
People say, oh, it's only a kid's book. That must have been easy. Oh
No,
no,
it's
it's so much
harder.
harder to write for
Yeah.
children. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're not a child, so you don't know how they'll consume it.
Hmm.
And so it is. It's a bit of a skill in itself. And actually, I've started kind of messing around doing a bit of writing for my next idea, and I was running it by my kids, like I was getting them to read it, and my 12-year-old loved it and like inhaled it, and then my 9-year-old some of the subtleties were missed on her, but that's the
Right.
target age that I wanted to write for. So that's the learning curve for me
Yeah, it's
too,
really interesting.
It's really interesting, what age groups
Yeah.
pick up on different things.
Yeah.
But the next book that I want to write, it's kind of inspired by her and it's for her and she's a bit more of a reluctant reader. So that's kind of why I was kind of inspired to write. So I want to make sure she inhales it. So if I
Wow.
need to make it simpler, that so be it. So it's really
Yeah.
good to keep an eye and have kids. It's great to have kids in the house to bounce off. Like,
Yes, I can imagine. And
yeah.
what did they think of this book when it came out?
Yeah, they loved it. Like the thing is that they saw, especially my son, because obviously it's out now a year. So I was writing it for a year. So he would have been kind of 10. He was a
Yeah,
great age and he's an amazing reader. He just inhales
he
books. So
likes reading.
I bounced off him a lot. My daughter, they're both in Gael schools. So actually she hadn't started reading English
Yeah.
until towards the so it was actually harder to bounce off her because they just focused on Gaeilge for the first couple
Uh-huh.
of years. But he was a great fella to bounce off, and he's mad into sport as well and Gaelic games. So, he had seen a lot of it before it was all came out as a book.
Oh, he must have been
So
thrilled to see
yeah,
it
he was
then.
thrilled, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
suppose it didn't make as much of an impact because he'd seen it come
Yeah.
together as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they were thrilled, and he came to the launch and he was delighted. Yeah.
Very. And then I suppose one more question is, I suppose, just how the book is going and the plans for this, or is it still selling well for you? And I see it everywhere still, which is great.
Yeah,
So,
I do see it. I was only up in O'Neill's, the factory shop, the other day to get mouth guards for the kids, and the book is still on the main
very
shelf
good.
behind the till. So I was delighted to see it there. You'd see it in the bookshops now around Christmas, hopefully, because it is a really
It's
good
a lovely present.
book for Christmas. Yeah. So
We got
I
it
think it's
twice
going
last
well.
year in our house. Actually, we got two
Ah,
presents.
that's lovely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
really
it
good.
is a really
Yeah,
nice gift to just
yeah,
give if you're given a gift of books to a family of kids. It's a nice
yeah.
one.
Oh, it's fabulous.
So yeah, I think still going well. But to be honest, like I think a lot of people who write books, they don't necessarily do it for the success of the
Hmm.
book. It's more if this was definitely a passion project, and
You can see that.
now it has gone well, thank God. But
Yeah,
it's definitely not. That's not what I'd be focusing on. I'm just really happy with it, and
yeah.
I think it will stand the test of time. Even though obviously, if we get integration, it'll be out of date, but it'll still be the only book. It's still the only book to have all of the Gaelic games in one place.
Yeah, it is. I was actually thinking that as we were talking about it this morning, just with some of the staff here, and we were saying that it's such a good resource. And I loved, actually, I forgot to mention the graphics around the stadiums. I thought they were brilliant. Like, it's
Yeah.
amazing with a few lines how you can identify a stadium. He's done
Oh
them
yeah.
so well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked that page. That was probably one of my favorites.
Oh
Yeah, and I loved the quotes from the Banish story were lovely as well. The way he did them in a
yes.
different font, that was lovely.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
liked that as well. Again, like a lot of that would have been around like the designer, like so Donna would have illustrated, but we would have had towards the end of the process, like a designer to actually look at how it would come together. And the same with the book cover. Like obviously Donna did all the illustrations, but
Yes.
in terms of how it was all laid out, there was a special, somebody specializes in designing that layout. But
Yeah.
I still absolutely am not sick of it. I absolutely love the cover of
Yeah,
the
and it's
book.
so important, isn't it? Because it's the
Yeah, because it
window
really
into
does
the whole
stand out.
book.
And it's funny
Yeah.
because when I first saw it and I showed it to my kids, they were like, "Oh my God, Mom, it's your favorite color," because I love turquoise. And it's my favorite color. I absolutely love it.
Ah, it's
So I'm
gorgeous.
thrilled.
No,
I'm thrilled that
yeah.
it's
Well, we
that
still
color and
have
it
it on
won't
the
be
shelves
together.
here, and it's super popular. So, yeah,
Oh,
thank
that's
you so
great.
much for chatting to
My
me. I know you're
pleasure.
so busy and you've had a crazy year. With there's been a lot of sport going on, so I really appreciate you talking to us. And hopefully we might get you into the museum maybe to do an event at some stage as well. I think it'd be lovely and a good fit.
I would absolutely love to do that. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
Julianne.
Thanks, Evanne.